Good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well. I just wanted to break in really quickly to share something that was just kind of on my mind, and wanted to get it out before I would leave and begin to do some of the things that I need to do this afternoon. And it's in reference to a woman's consciousness, because as you probably know, many of you know, if not all of you, I spend a lot of time teaching women, and most of our discussions, from my church ministry to the writing of my books to my speaking, travel, most of it deals with consciousness, even in terms of how I deal with men. Finishing this book now. I'm going to finish it tomorrow, actually. Kingology, and it deals with the consciousness of a man. And Queenology, of course, is the book that is most popular in father-daughter talk, or for women. Those books are most popular, and they deal with the consciousness of a woman. Because if we do not if we do not process the level of our consciousness, and if we do not own it, we will be owned. If I do not own my own consciousness, I will be owned by those who are predators, emotional vampires, psychological predators, who will play upon my lack of consciousness and use me as a puppet. The visual that we use a lot in Queenology is the clown pimping the queen. And just to my left there, actually, there's a framed drawing done by a young high school student, and it's the image of a queen on the corner, and a clown is pimping her. Why is that? It's because though she has the title, she does not have the corresponding consciousness. And so consciousness is very important. And this is no new age stuff. You know, you hear that term used a lot with a lot of new age. I'm Christian to the bone, you know, well, to a certain extent, I'm fundamentalist. A lot of what that means now is not applicable for me. Thank you, Rhonda. But I'm Team Jesus. In other words, you know, I'm not a God. I don't believe that you are God. We worship God, but consciousness is important, and the way we view life, the way we view God, the way we view ourselves, the awareness of ourselves that we have, these things are important. And a lot of times in the Christian church, we've become irrelevant because we've over spiritualized, in my opinion, we've over spiritualized life, and we've taken no personal responsibility. And so we're dealing with a world that has all of these natural problems, and we're saying everything is spiritual, when the reality is that most of the problems are what? Physical and emotional. And so it's like we're teaching and preaching the Bible, but it's like people asking, are there any answers in this book for my emotional well-being? Are there any answers in this book for my physical well-being? And the Bible is a document for successful living. It's just unfortunate that religion overlooks the value, the true worth, the true value that's in the book, and simply uses the book to manipulate and to control, which is exactly what I'm not about. But I want to talk about a woman's consciousness, and I want to talk about 3 subconscious mindsets that exist in women. And these are things that I've talked about, but I don't think I've ever put them together in one discussion as a discussion to themselves. It's always been, you know, a part of certain teachings. But the conscious functions, now listen to this very carefully. The conscious functions of a person are largely driven by subconscious triggers. The conscious, I don't know why my tongue is so slow. The conscious functions of a person are largely driven by subconscious triggers. Now, what does that mean? By that, I mean this. And again, let me say, as I always do, I didn't get the last part, thank you. I'm no psychologist, I'm no therapist, I'm just a preacher, and these are just my thoughts. So take it from there. When I say the conscious functions of a person are largely driven by subconscious triggers, this is what I mean. Most of what we consciously think and are aware of started with stuff that we were subconsciously thinking and were not aware of. You know, okay, let me give you this as an example. Most of the time, those of us that struggle with eating too much, most of the times when we begin to move towards the refrigerator, though, you know, in the moment we think consciously, you know, I just want to eat something. And the reality is that you just ate something 35 minutes ago and you ate quite substantially. And now you're thinking that you want to eat again. The reality is that that conscious thought for those of us who struggle in that area many times is driven by what? Something subconscious. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's depression. Maybe it's confusion. Maybe it's low self-esteem, whatever the case may be. But there's this subconscious wave that produces what we view as these conscious thoughts, but those conscious thoughts are produced by subconscious thoughts. Things embedded into the person's psyche, you know. And it's the things that are embedded in our psyche that causes us to establish standards and levels. And when you don't have your subconscious world purged and purified and managed, it will take your conscious world and throw it into oblivion. You'll be in a place where you're thinking thoughts and you don't know where they come from. And so it is with the woman today. The woman is broken on a subconscious level. And in Proverbs 4:23, it says, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." The issues of your life stem from the condition of your heart. The issues of your life stem from the condition of your heart. And he gives you and I the responsibility to keep our hearts, which means what? I'm responsible to guard and to protect my inner being. I'm responsible to take charge of my emotional well-being, my mental health, my spiritual condition, because out of my heart proceeds what? The issues of my life. The issues of my life are the reflection of the condition of my heart. And so when I look today and I see a lot that's going on with people in general, I'm not just looking at the fruit, I'm also acknowledging the root. And see, the root of your conscious thought, the root of your conscious behavior is 99% of the time subconscious. But we're not taught or trained to look deeper. And in a lot of instances, we are conditioned not to even desire help from those who can help us to look deeper. And so we continue with erratic behavior that we cannot explain, thoughts that we cannot control, because no one's really challenged us to look at the subconscious. So now there are three things that I want to share with you, which are three things that are part of my teachings to women. Number one is, what makes this thing up? Number one is female slave conditioning. Female slave conditioning. This may be a term, I don't know. I think it's something that I thought of, but I haven't Googled it to figure it out or not. female slave conditioning. Female slave conditioning is the impact, now listen to this very carefully. Female slave conditioning is the impact that society has on the woman's self-perspective. It is the intentional diminishing of the woman's worth in her own eyes and mind. This conditioning is facilitated through a series of lies. So now what did I just say there? Society, as it is constructed, intentionally subjugates the woman's mind in terms of, especially in terms of how she sees herself, how she views herself, how she values herself. It's not an accident that we have come to be a culture where women find nothing wrong with being completely naked on social media, not even in a strip club, not even in a controlled environment like that, just completely naked on social media. And will argue you down. I'm sure some will probably watch this and will give me a thumbs down because they don't want me to tell them that they shouldn't be naked on social media. We have come to a point where women will take and reveal all of themselves on social media completely naked for free and think nothing is wrong with it. Well, that didn't happen by accident. A couple of generations ago, you couldn't have paid your grandma or your grandmothers or your great grandmothers to reveal themselves even in their slip to a man that they weren't married to. And now we've turned into a generation of women that just get completely naked. Anybody can go on social media at any time and find a bunch of women on there completely naked, and these women think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Well, they have been what? Slave conditioned. Not understanding that they have been slave conditioned by a perverted male society that has diminished their self-perspective to the point that they will utilize their sexuality, something that should have been reserved for their husbands. They will utilize their full-blown sexuality, thank you so much, for the entertainment of a perverted generation of men who don't even matter. Well, how did that happen? How did our daughters get to this point where women are bowing down on their knees asking a man to marry them? How did that happen? Female slave conditioning, the intentional diminishing of the woman's worth through facilitating, this is facilitated through a series of lies. Lies like what? Lies about beauty. What's beautiful? Well, okay, there was a time when I was a young man that beautiful was white and it was skinny. That was beautiful. That's the way. Now beautiful is curvy, brown, So you got all of these different ideas from one generation, from one group to another about what beauty is. And so you have all of these different women who don't fit into those categories or those physical types. And now they're left with what? Marks of low self-esteem. When the reality is that all are beautiful. This body image thing, this obsessing with body image, where people are chopping themselves up and changing their appearance, completely just changing their appearance to try to be what the current generation deems as beautiful. What is that designed to do? That plays on a woman, and that's designed to break her self-esteem. And whenever a man wants to manipulate a woman, he compares her in terms of beauty to a type that he knows she cannot attain to. It's not that he doesn't think she's beautiful, it's that he wants to manipulate her like a slave. So if she's dark, he'll promote a woman that is light or white. If she's white, he'll promote a woman that is dark, so forth and so on. Not to what? Condition her to be manipulated. Nothing makes a person more manageable than low self-esteem. Lies about capability. Society heaps upon women. You can't do this because you're a woman. You know, you shouldn't be this. You shouldn't aspire for this position because you're a woman. Women shouldn't do this. Women shouldn't do that. Lies about value. You know, here's the biggest lie that women are sold, and this conditions the woman negatively. And here's the lie. The lie is that somehow if you're not married, you're worthless. If you're not married, you're worthless. Wow, you mean to tell me God created me and God put everything that he deemed I needed to have in me, and then God says, okay, but you're worth less if somebody does not choose you to be a wife. And so what happens is when you live with that lie, what happens is you what? You become the crown of creation, the greatest desire of man, and you find yourself running and desperately chasing behind men because society has made you believe if I never get a husband, I'm worthless. I may be the most brilliant scientist on the planet, but if I never get a husband, I'm worthless. I may be a billionaire in my own right as a woman, but if I never get a husband, I'm worthless. And so though you've attained to all of these goals and you've done all of these things, you look at your female counterparts or your female friends who have achieved none of their goals, really never even had goals, but just to get married, and they're unhappily married at that, and you view them as being worth more, having more value than you just because they have an unhappy marriage. That's a lie society sold you. Another lie society sells us is that, because we don't have, or some of us may not have or did not have fathers present, that somehow your life is incapacitated and you cannot, there's no way in the world for you to rebound from this. Lies, lies, lies. And all of these lies are designed to do what? Empower the spirit of low self-esteem within your own subconscious mind. And when low self-esteem gets a grip on your subconscious mind, you lower your standards. You lower your standards and you diminish your goals. And now you're in a position where what? A perverted male society can manipulate you as a woman. Now, interesting, I was reading the other day in Genesis chapter 3, and I was thinking about this very point relative to female slave conditioning. And in Genesis 3, 1 through 7, we have the account of course, Adam and Eve, but here specifically is the account of Eve and the serpent, Satan, Lucifer, having this conversation, and Lucifer deceiving her and then sending her back into the family, into the marriage, to deceive her husband. Well, he wasn't deceived. He was just weak because he knew better. Genesis 3 and 1 through 7 says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. Now listen very carefully, because you're going to see this female slave conditioning, in my opinion, at work here. I believe it's modeled here. It says, and he said unto the woman, Satan is talking to the woman, said unto the woman, yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat, and the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. But notice how Lucifer slides into this woman's life And what he says to her is, everything that your present existence is built upon is a lie. God lied to you. You cannot trust God. In fact, about it, you need to be more than you presently are. And so here's what I suggest you do. And so he twists her mind up and he gets her to buy into a lie. And it's through the lie that he sells her that he what? Dismantles her true dominion. Here was the reality. The reality was that Eve had dominion even over him. But he had to what? Usurp her power, usurp her authority by selling her a lie. And that lie, when she bought into that lie caused her to descend to a place where he could manipulate. That's, in my opinion, that's if you just look at it, that is the depiction of the first, in my opinion, the first act of female slave conditioning was when the serpent got into the mind of Eve in that garden and caused her to fall, to step down from the place of dominion that she was called to. So a lot of women today, or all women, are faced with female slave conditioning, but many of them are severely impaired and impacted by it, where society is just constantly pushing these lies about you, concerning you, and your self-perspective is dropping like a rock. The second thing, I only have three, of course, is broken consciousness. Now, broken consciousness is when a woman has been indoctrinated with so many self-debilitating lies for so long that she emotionally and psychologically and even physically surrenders to a diminished role and forgets her true dignity. This is when a woman has been dealing with it so long without any interruption that she just kind of surrenders and she gives in, and she surrenders and submits herself to a diminished role. Though she's a queen, she will function like whatever. Because now her what? Consciousness is broken. It's like there was a time that she felt something was not right, and that she was better than this. But now, because her consciousness is broken, she can no longer even contact the reality that there's something more to her than what she's presently producing or participating in. This is when she just buys in and she sells out. Now, a woman with broken consciousness will settle for a price far beneath her worth because she has no clue. And this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a generation of women who are struggling from broken consciousness. They're queens, but they're asleep. They're queens, but they're asleep. They're sleepwalking through life. The crown is on the nightstand. The throne is on the other side of the room, but they're asleep. Their consciousness has been interrupted. It has been broken. So even though they are who they are in the eyes of the Creator, they cannot function in their rightful roles because they are unconscious. They need to be awakened. And isn't that what we're looking at in most cases when we look at women today? Women all over the world are suffering from broken consciousness. They just don't know who they are. They just don't know who they are. And then they, what makes it even worse is when they don't have, in a lot of cases, the paternal affirmation. The father's not present to build the self-esteem, and then they enter into the world searching for that affirmation, and they're looking for that affirmation in the eyes or the arms of a man, because he represents what? The father she wished she had gotten it from. And the reality is that most men are not going to wake a woman up. He will give her, whatever else she needs to keep her anesthetized. Hope I said that word right. My tongue gets tied up on that one. He'll keep her unconscious because The only way a perverted male society can manipulate a queen is to keep her unconscious. The world hates a woke queen. And the world hates anybody that would serve to awaken her. Right? Now, there's a biblical example of what this looks like when you start talking about broken consciousness. So we went from female slave conditioning to broken consciousness. And in John chapter 4, one of my favorite texts, Jesus meets this woman, the Samaritan woman, at a well. And it says in John 4:16 through 19, and it's a lot, so you can read the whole thing in your leisure. In John chapter 4, it says, Jesus saith unto her, so we're picking up in the middle of the conversation, go call thy husband and come back. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. And Jesus said unto her, thou hast well said, I have no husband, for thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. In that sayest thou truly. The woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. So this woman had been used by men so long, she just subconsciously accepted the role of being a sex machine. She had 5 husbands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now she was presently with a man that she wasn't even married to. And Jesus prophetically reveals this to her. And what he does is, okay, now listen to this very carefully because this is important. What he does is he uses language that would be jarring to her. He would just, for Jesus to just take and dive into her personal business and probably personal matters that she probably wanted to keep covered up. Jesus just dives in and he goes straight for the jugular. And the woman says, I perceive you're a prophet. Well, when the consciousness is broken, sometimes you have to have somebody that will use a harsh truth to jar you and wake you up, make you like shocked, like my initial videos that I uploaded to YouTube were done on Periscope, and I was doing those videos from a pastoral perspective, and I didn't really, I didn't have any kind of social media decorum or anything. So I was just I was going in like a father fussing at his daughters, and the biggest one I got is getting ready to turn 1 million views. And it's just one blow after another. And I listen to it, I'm like, wow, I was so harsh. But now I'm realizing that when a person's consciousness is broken, it's almost like the last thing they need is somebody just kind of stroking them and rubbing them. Sometimes they need a hard, harsh, but loving truth. And so Jesus gives this woman a hard, harsh, but loving truth. You done had 5 husbands, and the one you got now, the man you got now, ain't your husband. And she says, when Jesus gave her that hard, harsh truth, what happened was he reintroduced her to herself. In other words, he woke her up. Have you ever seen somebody sleeping so hard that you had to just really put your hands on them and just shake them to wake them? Well, Jesus had to shake her to wake her. And when she woke up, it's like she came to herself and she realized, man, I've been sleeping and people have been abusing me. I've been living beneath God's standard for me. I'm better than this. And now watch this. If you go down to verses 27 through 30, now remember, we just looked at how her issue was she struggled with men. She had 5 husbands, and the man she had presently was not hers. So her issue, at least one of her major issues were men. But now when Jesus got through dealing with her and he woke her up, in John 4:27 through 30, it says, and upon this came his disciples. After Jesus having this conversation, his disciples come and marveled that he talked with the woman. Yet no man said, what seekest thou? Or why talkest thou with her? The woman then left her water pot by the well and went her way into the city. Pay attention to this. And saith to the men, what was her issue? Her issue was men. When Jesus got through dealing with her and waking her up, she goes into the city and she says to the men, come see a man which told me all things that ever I did. Is not this the Christ? Then they went out of the city and came unto him. So men were her issue. Men manipulated her. But when she was awakened by Jesus, she was empowered to lead men. When you wake up, the thing that has been riding over your head and the thing that has been manipulating you will be the very thing that you will take authority and have power over. So, number one, we said the woman is struggling with female slave conditioning. All of this is happening beneath the surface. That female slave conditioning leads to what? Broken consciousness. And here's the third subconscious reality of some women. And this is queen consciousness. Now, I started to put, which would have seemed like shameless self-promotion, so I didn't do it. I started to put queenology as the third because, and it really is real. Queenology is the study of the queen. It's the study of queens. And what has to happen when the consciousness has been broken, there has to be, the Bible says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Queenology is the renewing of the woman's mind. It's reconnecting the woman's consciousness to who she really is. And then this ultimately leads into a what? A queen consciousness. Now let's define it. And this is what we're working towards. We're working towards bringing a whole generation of women into queen consciousness. Queen consciousness is the internal understanding of who the woman is, what she's worth, and her subconscious expectations that won't allow her to settle for less. So a woman is queen conscious when she has an internal understanding. Conscious expectations won't allow her to settle for less. That's when you know you're queen conscious. It's when something is shifted in you to the point that that's not right. I'm better than this. I'm not supposed to behave like this. I'm not supposed to settle for anything like this. This is who I am. This is what I'm worth, period. And if you can't come up to this, that's a queen conscious woman. A queen conscious woman is never cutting a deal for a clown. Queen conscious women only hear the voices of kings. Queen conscious woman never settles for less than she knows she's worth. Queen conscious, She's not going to compromise the standard for convenience. She's queen conscious, If she has to live out the rest of her days as a healthy and whole individual, she will do that before she will settle for a clown and a crown. Because she's what? Queen conscious. She's not struggling with broken consciousness. She's no longer a victim of female slave conditioning because she knows the game and she rebuts it every time. And she's also engaged in what? Teaching her fellow sisters better. She becomes an example to her fellow sisters who have been asleep. She helps to even wake them up because she's what? Queen conscious. She's not going to sit around here and lose her mind over a man that if you really sat down with a pad, you made a list of the cons and the pros, she'd have pages of cons and would struggle to put a pro. All she be able to say for pros, I mean, he looked good. 2, he has potential. And then she about done. She's not gonna sit around and lose her mind over something like that. She's not going to define herself by her relationship or a relationship with somebody other than her relationship with God and her relationship with herself. She's what? Queen conscious. She's woke. She's woke. And I'm done. Look what the Bible says in Psalm 139 and 14. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works. And here's the part I love the most that most people miss. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Oh, Lord. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, God. All of your works are marvelous, but the beauty is I'm aware of it. My soul knows it. In other words, I'm not only this, you not only created me as this, but it is etched in my soul. I believe it from my subconscious, from my spirit. I know who I am. I know my value. I know my worth. I don't need anybody from the outside to come in and define me. I don't need anybody from the outside to come in and to build my self-esteem. My self-esteem is built in you and my understanding of who I am and who you've created me to be. My soul knows it. Now, the world is going to call that what? Arrogance. No, it's confidence. It's certainty. Because the woman is what? Queen conscious. Because the woman is queen conscious. No man can come and just talk a whole lot of trash in her ear and spin her off of her game. No, this woman is queen conscious. She knew who she was before she left the house. She didn't need a man to tell her in the street she fine. She realized that when she passed by the mirror. And she's not judging her beauty based on what society says is beautiful. Because as we talked a few minutes ago, that's always changing. From one generation to the next, beauty changes. Now everybody trying to get rounded hips, getting stuff put in them to get rounded hips. Everybody burning themselves up, trying to get their skin browned and all this kind of stuff. And she knows who she is. Straight, round, 8, whatever it is beautiful and is marvelous. And she's certain of it in her own mind. She doesn't need anybody else to affirm or to confirm. She knows who she is. And so I wanted to just share this with you on this Monday morning as this year begins to wind down. Let me say this, and I'm out of here. I haven't eaten today. Let me say this. I am on my way to London, England, March 27th and 28th. Queenology London is happening. And I'm looking forward to meeting so many of you that, have developed some level of relationship with you, but I'm looking forward to just getting a chance to meet you and touch you and what have you. I want you to go to rcblakes.com if you're anywhere in Europe. In fact, some people are leaving the States to go to London to be a part of Queenology London. Go to rcblakes.com, look under live events and get all of the information. Also, in July of 2020, we're having the Queenology Cruise, Western Caribbean Cruise. And love to have you there. People are coming. They're going to be on that cruise from all over the nation. Even some folk out of Europe are coming to the States to take that cruise with us down into the Western Caribbean. Also, don't forget that I have the Queenology online course is available. Those of you that have been asking for it, it's available. You can go there now and get it. It's like 10 sessions and it'll bless you. It's like the continuation of the discussion. It'll bless you. All of this is at what? rcblakes.com. Those of you that have not subscribed to my mailing list, my email list, please do so. Go to rcblakes.com and sign up for my mailing list, and you get all of the updates. You'll know everything that I'm doing, everywhere that I'm going. And don't forget to stop by Amazon, pick up my books, Queenology, Father-Daughter Talk, Imperfectly Holy, Wisdom for Women in Ministry, and Soul Ties, and all that kind of stuff. I love you all. Thank you so much. Don't forget tomorrow at noon. Tomorrow at noon, I'm going to be here, noon Central Standard Time. I'll be here, and we're talking about the contract with myself. There are 8 points that I'm going to bring you through tomorrow at noon as we shut 2019 down. There's a contract that you need to make with yourself. Tomorrow at noon, Central Standard Time, I will be right here and we're going to go through it. Well, I love you. Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time. And just know I'm always praying for you. And know that you're in my heart. And you're on top and you're going higher. God has what? More in store for you. So I'll see you at the top. God bless you, my babies. Talk to you soon.